And welcome to Connected Conversations for Creatives, a place where creatives like you can learn, grow, and connect. I'm your host, Jennifer Carr, and I can't wait to introduce today's guest. We've all probably heard the phrase, you can do whatever you set your mind to. And sometimes that's true. Other times, it's like the time I told my mom I wanted to be an astronaut, and she said, you can do anything you set your mind to. And then I almost passed out after riding my first roller coaster. And I know that's a silly example, but we still laugh about it. In life, however, and in our careers and in our dreams, we're told we can do whatever we set our mind to, and then we aren't given the tools we need to create the mindset required to go after those things, whether it's promotions or weight loss goals or new adventures. We sometimes go into these things with the mindset or an established set of attitudes that we can give something a try, and if it fails, then we're just not meant to do it. When what we need is to create a completely new mindset, a growth mindset that says my abilities and my skills aren't set in stone, but can instead grow and change and become the tools I need to be successful. Today's guest is an expert on what it looks like to grow a healthy mindset. And what I love so much about her work is that she focuses on instilling a growth mindset in children. So without further delay, I'd like to introduce to you April Hartmann. She is a professional illustrator, a self-published children's book author, and I'm so glad that she was able to join me today to have this conversation. So welcome to the show, April.
Thank you, Jennifer. I'm so happy to be here.
So tell us about yourself and let's start with your journey to becoming an illustrator and a children's book author.
Okay, well, yes, like you said, I am an author and illustrator. My artwork appears in kids' magazines and on games and toys. It's also on posters, packaging, and I have illustrated many books for children. And The Dream Keepers, this is a book that was published by How Kids Books in August of 2021. And this was my first published book as an author. Since then, I have been working on promoting my new business that you did mention that is all around growth mindset. And going back now to your original question, how I got started with illustration. So I grew up in Michigan in a suburb of Detroit called Plymouth. And I've always been interested in art. As a kid, I was always drawing. That was my thing. But growing up in family, my dad was an auto worker and didn't really understand how that could become a career. I took another path in the beginning. I was also pretty good with math, with numbers. So I started off when I went away to college, I studied architecture. I thought, here's a way that I can combine, my ability with numbers and my love for art. And my first semester of physics at the college level, uh, I wasn't I wasn't thriving as I had done in high school with that course. And I remember that there was one night that I sat with my physics book and I thought, you know what? Okay, I haven't been doing well on these tests. I'm just going to do some extra study. There's a problem in the book and there's an answer at the end of the book. And as much as I sat and I tried it this way and that way and follow the steps, I just wasn't getting it. And something that occurred to me in that moment was, I think I could, I can go find a tutor, go to my instructor, get some extra help with this. But what occurred to me was that I just didn't want it bad enough. That if there was something that I was going to put that kind of passion and work into, I wanted that to be a career in art. So I did whatever background information that I could, research I could find to what does that career look like. I presented it to my parents. I'm going to, give this everything I have, whatever it takes. And they took that information and trusted me with it. And I transferred to art school the following year. I graduated from the College for Creative Studies in Detroit. and I've been an illustrator, designer, art director ever since then. So that's the beginning of the journey.
That's amazing. I love that. The way, you recognize I am not thriving here. Like this probably may not be for me. And then you pivoted. Like that is huge, especially for creative people. And because sometimes we can get bogged down in all of those big heavy things and we have to pivot. And so that was just your creative brain saying, I gotta pivot. Like it's time. We gotta
Yeah.
move on. So I just want to start by saying that I was surfing your website and it's adorable. Like my little growth mindset, it's adorable. Everything about it is just fabulous. And I watched the trailer for your book, The Dream Keepers, and it is beautiful. Like it just made me so happy watching it. So tell us about the book and the inspiration behind it.
So the Dream Keepers. The Dream Keepers is a story about how to make a wish come true with these two helpers, Happy Thoughts and Heart. And so they are personifying these two characteristics. And in the story, they are helping this little star on a long journey to its home in the sky. So it's a story about overcoming obstacles and keeping a positive attitude, but also putting in some really hard work when that's necessary. So story about achieving a goal and making a dream come true.
I love it. And like, was it ever your goal to sit down and write a kid's book for anything?
Yes, it was. So I started my career as an illustrator where I'm always doing projects for other books and projects. And I always had stories in my mind, ideas that would just pop up. And I'd just, make a little note and think I'll get to that someday. And years ago, I did decide, okay, it's time to put this to work. I joined the Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators, started going to workshops and critique groups to really, work on that skill to make sure that my writing did the job because it was not part of my training in school. And eventually, I did meet some editors and agents, and I was starting to submit my stories. So it's uh, it's been, I think, some of the best relationships that I've built over the years is that back and forth with, coming up with an idea and then seeing it through to something finished, whether it's, with an agent or a client, an editor, and working with them over the years. It's been very fulfilling. Yeah.
Which I'm sure requires a growth mindset because
Yeah.
it's not something that you just started out doing, right? I mean, you started in school for architecture and then it kind of
Mhm.
blossomed into other things. Now, obviously, you've had creativity flowing through you all of this time. And so let's lean into something. And if it's too personal and you don't want to talk about it, that's okay. But was there a point in your life where you realized that benefiting from developing a growth mindset, like that especially when it comes to helping kids achieve it, like, was there a moment that made you go, "I've got to change the way I think and process things, and then I think my kids would benefit from this?"
Yeah. So, me personally, it's something that I think that as an illustrator and creative, that it's something that was kind of ingrained in me all along because I never felt like, okay, I'm going to go to college and I'm going to have this one job and this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. That was not ever anything something that appealed to me. To me, the idea of always being curious about the next thing and, oh, I'm doing this art style and I'm going to do this book here, but and what's next? What's after that? So I've always just gotten very excited about new ideas, taking on the next thing. What inspired me to think about this for children? Yeah, a lot of it did have to do with my children. I have three kids, and they are all 5 years apart. And to see small children in that short window of time, the same mom, but each one a completely different person. These are not blank slates because they seem to be, each wired in a very unique way with, just certain attributes of the way of looking at the world. but at the same time, wanting to help them see my view, my way of the world, of just being open and curious and always wanting to learn something new. And this is something that it was just always fascinating to observing it in them, how they, pursued certain things and saw strengths in themselves, and knowing that there were certain times that I could ask a question that would just like light them up and just set them on a path of exploring something new. So that's something that had always been an interest to me. And, over the years, watching how that developed as they, grew into teenagers and now, young adults starting their own lives, So it's something, going back and looking at my work and how can I use that experience that I have and that love of learning and promote it for another generation. It's something that with the Dream Keepers, it's written for school age kids, and growth mindset is talked about a lot in education. But I realized that, that the teachers are getting in a group of students and they're working with kids that already have a certain mindset. Some of them already have this fixed mindset of, well, yeah, I'm just not good at math, or yeah, I can't read yet, so that means I'm not smart like the other kids, or I'm quiet, so I can't make friends. These kinds of things that kids are walking in the door already with this fixed idea. And I thought, well, why aren't we talking about this with parents at a much earlier age? So as I looked into it, and I saw there really was not a mainstream resource for this. It was talking directly to parents through books and other media. So thought I have the vision for it. I was already doing a lot of my illustration work geared towards very young children, and I thought, well, maybe I can combine the two, and I can be the one that puts that together. And so it's funny, it was just kind of a note I had in my head, like this is one of those little story ideas. I'm going to write it down on a to-do list. Someday I'll get this. I'm going to do another book about growth mindset for a younger age. And it's just kind of in the back of my mind. And then one day I had a dentist appointment. And okay, I'm sitting in the dentist's chair, I got 40 minutes here, and I have a whole list of other projects and things to do at home. What am I going to do with this time in my head? Well, I'm going to think about that project, this book idea that I could come up with. And in the 30 minutes I was there, like the wheels started turning. And by the time I was driving home, it was like, I need to scrap everything else I was working on because I had this complete vision. It was not just the book, but it was also activities and printables and the blog and everything else. Because really, can you get growth mindset, really explained to a child in one book? Probably not. It's going to be a whole way of parenting and, the way that they go through everyday life, looking at the challenges that come up and learning from mistakes and continuing to persist. Things that we all face. But yeah, children especially, they're forming some ideas about who they are from a very early age. So that's where I wanted to step in.
Definitely. And I think sometimes we forget as adults that kids are people. And just like adults, they can get bogged down by those negative thoughts and those attitudes like kids do. It's even just when they come from us, they get bogged down, not just by their own. And babies aren't born with negative thoughts. They're like these little tiny sponges that soak up the words and the actions and just the environment around them. And it comes from everyone, whether, it's a preschool teacher or parents. And so they react to what they are given and then they behave accordingly. So I love that you focus on helping parents instill this mindset on their kids and in their kids, because looking back on just my life and my childhood, I can see those places where I was encouraged to grow and be better. And I can see the areas that I wasn't. And the hurdles that I faced in light of those lesser encouraged areas were much larger because not only did I have to figure out how to do those things, but I had to change my attitude about the learning process for those things. And so I love how you encourage parents to not just encourage their children, but to also encourage the children to pursue the things they're already good at and also embrace the failure that comes with it because failures are just a challenge that can be overcome.
Right. Right. Yeah. Like going back to what you just said about, having that, that internal dialogue, sometimes we have this negative self-talk that, I kind of wonder sometimes when I ask myself, where did that come from? I know that my parents encouraged me but there's other things that just kind of soak in a little bit here and there. One of the things for me is that I grew up always with this idea thinking that I'm the quiet one. And here I am on a podcast. I have a lot to say, obviously, but it was something that, compared to my siblings, I was quieter than them. And I suppose even my teachers picked up on that, or friends and even peers and colleagues along the way. She's the quiet one. Okay. So this was one of the things that I had to challenge with myself, realizing, well, I'm an adult and I have a lot of things to say, and I can speak up when I find that it's necessary to do that. So I've taken steps, even joining my local Toastmasters group to think this is just another skill that I can practice and I can improve and get feedback and eventually, hopefully, master it. That's in the name Toastmasters. That's my goal there. So, yeah, like what you said about going back to a very young age, and it makes me think about when a child is coming up on a challenge. It might be their first instinct to go ask for help. And so, what they're saying to themselves in that moment is, "This feels hard." And that feeling doesn't feel good. And these are small children that don't understand their emotions, so many emotions that they're just learning how to process and handle. And so it occurs to me that when a child is at that moment that they're asking for help, that rather than just stepping in and helping with the thing, to try to work on asking what's going on in their head. How are you feeling right now? And what do you think about this? And what is the part of this thing that's hard that you want help with or that you think you could get better with? And how do you think you could do that? So that rather than, automatically, okay, I got to a point, this feels hard, that means this is where I stop. And then we have this negative voice in our head, and it's creating a path from a very young age that something feels hard, so I stop and I pivot or ask for help rather than continuing through it. If perhaps, what if we just stopped and this feels hard, it's time to ask a question. Why does this feel hard? And what is this feeling that I'm having? Maybe I'm just tired. Maybe I want a snack or whatever it is, and then come back to it. Maybe I need to look at some other options and then eventually come back and pursue this thing. But just trying to think of a different way to handle those feelings of challenge, what that's like. So yeah, that's the idea of my little growing mindset. And yeah, it's something that I still work on every day.
Oh,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
One of my favorite psychologists is Jordan Peterson. And one of the things that he's known for saying is that you have to let your kids do dangerous things carefully. And he goes on to say that it's in those dangerous moments that a couple of things happen. He says, one, your kid is going to learn what they can and can't do. And in that process, they expand their ability to develop required skills to succeed when they do try again. But also, as the parent, you learn how to let go of the fear of being afraid for them. And I had to sit with that for a while the first time I heard it because I thought, no, I'm literally just afraid for her safety. I don't want her to fall off the monkey bars. She's too small and all. But it was really, I was sitting there going, oh no, is she scared? What can I do to stop those feelings of fear for her? And I'll solve the problem for her. And so when we instill that mindset of I'll solve the problem for you and our kids, it's because we want them to succeed and we're afraid they'll be disappointed in themselves, or even in us if they fail. But that's where that growth mindset comes into play. And as parents, we have to develop one too, because it's really hard to teach kids something that we don't ourselves know or have. And so if we encourage them to try something or allow them to try something, even if we know there's a really good chance they're not going to get it right the first time, or that they are going to fail, or that they might actually get hurt. Obviously we're not going to let them go swim with sharks, when they're 6 years old, but within reasonable boundaries, we're allowing them to expand their horizons, and then we empower them to solve their problems and think more critically on their own.
Yeah, totally agree.
Yeah. Do you think in order for parents to help their young children grow in their own mindset, can the parents use your materials, your books, your resources to grow together? Or do you have resources that parents can also use before they help their children? Or is it like we grow together?
It's both. So I have a blog that's, reading for the parents to just get a better idea of what growth mindset looks like, some of the benefits of it. And also I have ebooks on my website they're pretty simple. I wanted the storylines to be so simple that you could even look at this on your phone and read it with your child. And each book is tailored to a certain challenge that small children might be facing, something like learning how to get dressed or learning how to calm down. And each book has 3 different scenarios in it. So getting dressed, there's a boy putting on his shirt. There's a girl putting on her pants. There's a little boy putting on his socks and shoes. And with each of these, they're figuring out, when I got to this one part, this was hard. Should I try to fix this, or should I ask for help, or should I keep going? And when they are asking these questions, these are some of the same questions that parents can use in everyday life. And you're hearing multiple ways of using this language. It's not just one, oh, you worked really hard doing that, because that's just going to be another cliche and it won't do anything. But it's rather a question to help the child look at the situation and how they're feeling and a different way of handling it. So with having a variety of books, there's a lot to draw from there. I would say one of my favorites is the book about learning to calm, because babies are learning to self-soothe from very young age. Something as simple as sucking their thumb. They want to know how to calm their feelings. And so in this story, I'm offering 3 different techniques. Not necessarily techniques, but just ways of looking at it. In one story, a baby grabs her blanket and that's not quite doing it. So she puts on some music and starts rocking back and forth. And in another story, a boy is learning how to take deep breaths. And in another story, a little girl, she's waiting in line at a busy amusement park. And she's just feeling hot and overwhelmed, and it's noisy, and she really wants to go on this ride. And if she loses it, she's going to have to get out of line. So she remembers, oh, wait, there's tapping. My mom showed me how to do tapping. And she's in line with her brother, her older brother, who also knows how to do the tapping. So he helps her with it. And talking about resources, I made a poster. This is one of the printables on my website that shows some of the steps for tapping so that at home, parents can go through this and practice these steps with their child so that when they're in a situation like that, they can learn the self-soothing techniques. So just briefly, tapping, for anybody who's not familiar with it, it's you're touching on meridian points and you tap 10 times. There's the eyebrow, under the nose, under the arm, and on top of the head. For adults, there's like 10 different steps you can go through and repeat, but I made this abbreviated version that even small children can learn and memorize. So with this, the whole idea and how this fits into the growth mindset concept is that you're showing children that they have the power to make choices to help with these huge emotions. That even when they're feeling really overwhelmed, that there's a skill that they can learn to help manage that. So, and they can get better at it, just like with anything else. So,
Yes, your resources, it gives the children the realization that they have a voice, which totally relates back to, you finding your voice, right? Like, and saying, I may have been like, they may see me as quiet, but I have a voice and I'm going to use it. And how much freedom and empowerment was there when you realize I don't have to be the quiet one. I can be introspective and I can be observant, but I don't have to be quiet. Like, there's some freedom in that. And so
yeah.
you're giving children this power. And it also teaches them in a way, like consent. I read I downloaded, you had, I think it was the one about choosing the foods that you like and don't like. It's a freebie on your website right now. And so I was reading that one and I thought, so often I realized that there's a lot to be said for children being taught you eat what's given to you when that's necessary. But and this was something that we struggled with our own child. She has some issues with textures and with like tactile things, and she always has. But it was always instilled in me when growing up that you didn't have a choice. If it was given to you, it was because that's what we had. That's what you were going to receive. You were going to be grateful for it, and you were going to eat it. And I thought, just reading your little book, I thought that would have been so handy 13 years ago when I was dealing with, this child who I didn't understand that she needed to be given choices, the options, to have an option to say that's not for me. And so that was good I love to see that little book in so many hands. I think that will be a great resource for people as well, because I know we're not the only ones that have ever and will ever deal with that situation. But yeah, I think just giving kids a voice, that is huge, and saying you can make choices and I will be here when your choice is right, and I will be here when your choice is wrong. And we'll help make choices together sometimes when we need to.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So if you could suggest one resource to start with, where would you direct people? What would be the first thing you said, this is where you should start?
So I would suggest to start with the book that just released. This is available on Amazon, and it is the title, My Little Growing Mindset, which is the same as the website, My Little Growing Mindset. And this book is also set with 3 stories. The 3 children here. There are 3 stories in here. Jada works hard, Benjamin solves a problem, and Sophia chooses to be brave. So these are 3 concepts that are really basic, overarching concepts of growth mind. And with these stories, each child is going through a challenge that's pretty typical that kids this age can relate to. So, because it is growth mindset for ages 2 to 5. So I didn't want this to be something like, pretend you're, the little engine that could, or, an animal that's learning to do something. I want it to be very relatable, that there are children being challenged in ways that other kids can relate to right now, every day. And so to start with, I think this would be a great place. And in the book, there is, with each story, once the child has overcome a challenge, there's something that the parents will say with the child So it's also giving yet another way to promote growth mindset and nurture it with the way that you praise your child and just the comments and observations that you make, because it's not all about praise. We don't want to just have kids that are always looking for the praise. We want to encourage just curiosity for kids to even pursue things that they might not be very good at right now, but have an interest in. And if they're just looking for praise all the time, then they're going to shy away from that. So I would say that this book is a good place to start. And with that, there is also bonus material. At the end of the book, there's a bonus code. You come in here, you get your bonus code, come to my website and download an entire bundle of goodies that you can use at home, games and activities. There is one of the games that is available with that is inclusive friendship fun. And this is a game board where you are in the scene with Sophia here, where Sophia is choosing to be brave. Her story is all about making friends and playing with other kids at the park. So this was something that I wanted to have kids have a chance to role play with that. So the game is all about you are Sophia in the park and you're inviting kids to come and play and what are some of the things that you might say. So it's just another way to promote that growth mindset in that way. So yes, I would say this is a great place to start and take you to the website with everything else there.
I think that this is a resource that you could take to preschools and you could take to elementary schools and talk to the guidance counselors and just say, hey, I think this is a resource your school could use, especially preschools, because it is geared for the so much younger of children's ages. But I could totally see it working in kindergarten classrooms too. I hope that's what happens. I hope that it just goes big. I don't know if that is something that you've ever considered pursuing, but I would be calling some preschools around the area and be like, hey, have I got a story for you?
Thank you. That's a great idea.
Yeah, definitely. No, that's counseling is my thing. That's my background before I became an author as a marriage and family counselor, and I still dabble in that. But just, when I see resources that I think, hey, because they're the state, and this is kind of like veering off topic, but it's what I do. I chase rabbits sometimes. But the mental health state, especially just in the last 3 to 5 years, with all the crazy that we have seen happen, if we don't address it at such younger ages, I think that we're going to see a massive decline in just society as a whole. And so being able to put these kinds of resources in the hands of children that says, because we live in this social media age where the standard of perfection, one, it's fake, but they don't understand that. And two, it's so unbelievably high that they see these things, even 5 and 6-year-olds who are following these. Why? I don't know. That's a whole nother topic, but why they can see these influencers and these perfectly beautiful and pristine lifestyles of people, and they think this is what I have to grow up to live up to. And they get so overwhelmed where they see these standards, and it's like, no, if you have a growth mindset, if your mindset is flexible and you are able to realize that you have so much more to offer than just living up to these standards, I think, man, what a better world we would live in. So yes, like, let's get them in the hands of every little kid and teacher and preschool teacher out there.
I'm behind you 100%.
Let's go. Let's lead the charge.
Let's go. Let's do this. Yes. This was something that, when I got the idea for this, like I said, in the dentist chair, that this is not just a book. This is something that I'm going to put everything behind. So yeah, I'm still open to all of my other illustration work, always, working with my clients, but this is something that I'm going to take as far as I can. Because I feel like it's that important.
I agree. It is that important. If you could leave our listeners with one piece of advice or one piece of encouragement, what would it be?
Since we're talking with other creatives, and I did look back at some of your other episodes talking with writers. And even though I started out as an illustrator, I'm a writer. I have constantly had all these ideas of books, and I have a list of 100 ideas that I've kept that, oh, maybe someday I'll get to. And it can be really hard to focus. And I feel blessed that I have found this one thing that finally I can, sort through all of that. And here is one thing that I feel like I can focus all of that creative energy on, because it can be a struggle. So I would say that my one piece of advice in dealing with that for creatives in general, because it does seem like the creative mindset is a blessing because you are open to so many things, but it can also be a curse because you can only get so far down one thing before you get the shiny object over here. One of the things that I would say is that when it comes to focusing, growth mindset is the key for me, because often what I found is that shiny object becomes more attractive when the thing that's in front of me is really hard. So for me, how I start my day with telling myself that I'm going to do the hard things first. And when I start my day with that, that tells me that I am the kind of person who does hard things first, and that I am able to, yeah, if there's something, a shiny distraction, I can look at that later in the evening when, I'm shutting down the office for the day. But the path that I'm on, those things, get those done first. Don't wait till you feel like doing it. Get those done first. That's my gem.
That's like, I'm sitting over here like I'm about to jump out of my seat. Like that is fantastic advice because that is so true. I get so bogged down sometimes that I'm just like, oh, I'd rather do something that's way more fun. Like, let's just go make a TikTok, whatever. Because that's way more fun than sometimes focusing on, should I put that comma there? I don't know. This, what it is. And so, I just sit there and I have a running list of, okay, this popped into my head. I'm going to write it down and I'll come back to it because right now this is where my focus needs to be, regardless of either how mundane or monotonous or hard, whatever it is, because it does change that entire outlook on what you are capable of. I think sometimes we would like to make an excuse and say, well, I just can't do that right now. But the fact of the matter is, it's not that we can't. It's that we've chosen to allow ourselves to get distracted. And so growth mindset will help with focus, which is funny because you think, how is expanding my, focus is supposed to zoom in, right? But how is expanding my mindset going to help me focus? It's because you come to realize what priorities are important and what should be prioritized and what things need to maybe move down the list a little bit.
Yep. Yep. You got it.
Yeah. Yeah. So tell us where listeners can connect with you.
Okay. So you can find more of my illustration work on my professional website, which is ahcreations.com. That's AH as in April Hartmann. And if you'd like to learn more about My Little Growing Mindset, that's at mylittlegrowingmindset.com, and also on Instagram at My Little Growing Mindset. All of those resources, you'll find links to all of the books we talked about and printables and other social media outlets.
Perfect. And all of that's going to be listed in the show notes. So, as you're listening and you want to go check that out, it will all be there together where you can find her. And don't forget that when you get her book on Amazon, when you find her newest book on Amazon, you get that free bonus bundle to download from her website. And it's worth it. Who doesn't love free things for one? But, not only you're going to get the book that's beneficial, but then you've got the additional resources that you need to get started helping your child grow their mindset and maybe even your own a little bit. So April, what else you got for us?
Well, I just wanted to say thank you so much for having me on here, because this is really exciting for me to start to take part in conversations like this. One of the things with starting a business is I have to wear many, many hats with this. And one of the things that I had heard was, well, you should share the journey, and that helps other creatives be inspired. And there's all different ways to do this. Oh, I can start a YouTube channel and post every day on Instagram. And I'm doing a lot of things where I don't have time to run something like that. So an opportunity like this, just to come in and chat with you and share that with some of your listeners, fantastic opportunity. Thank you so much for
Oh,
making this
thank
possible.
you. Yeah, no, like, I thrive on having these kinds of conversations, not only because they help me, but because I know that there's somebody out there who needs to hear the same exact thing. So I hope that we can stay connected. I want to see what you do in the future because I know it's going to be big. Like I know that there is something great on the horizon for this. And I hope that I get to say I was on the front end of seeing it happen. Yeah. Thank you so much. Others, if you are looking for resources to help you write better stories and more relatable characters, visit my website, jcarwrites.com/authors. And to everyone else listening, now's the time. Go unlock your creative potential, embrace your authentic self, and look for opportunities to create new, genuine connections.